I woke up and the house was empty. There was no one, no sound of dishes, no smell of coffee, not even the voices of my son and his girlfriend arguing in the kitchen about what to have for breakfast. Nothing. I walked barefoot down the hallway. The soles of my feet felt the cold of the wood floor, the one I had chosen myself 20 years ago when I built this house with the sweat of my work as an accountant. I opened the door to the living room. The sofa was gone, and so was the coffee table I inherited from my mother, and the floor lamp I bought in Savannah the day I got my first promotion. I walked into the dining room empty. The chairs, the oak table, the antique china cabinet where I kept the crystal glasses we only used at Thanksgiving. Everything had vanished. My heart started pounding so hard I felt the pulse in my temples. I ran to my bedroom. My bed was still there, and my clothes. But when I opened the living room closet where I kept some important documents, things were missing. I checked every corner of the house like a lunatic. The television, the framed pictures, even the garden pots on the patio. Where was everything? I grabbed my phone with trembling hands. I dialed my son, Jackson. Once, twice, 3 times, and on the 4th ring, he answered. "Mum?" His voice sounded calm, almost cheerful. "Jackson, where are you? What happened to the furniture? The house is—" "Oh, yeah. Mum, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." He paused. "We sold a few things. Well, several things." I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. "What do you mean you sold my things? My furniture?" "Don't get upset, Ma. It's just that—" I heard his girlfriend, Tiffany's voice, laughing in the background. "It's just that Tiffany and I urgently needed the cash. We went to Paris. She always dreamed of going, you know. And well, you always say we should support each other as a couple, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Jackson, that's my house. Those were my furnishings. Things I bought with my work, with my—" "Oh, Mum, don't overreact. They're just material things." Then his tone became almost childlike. "Besides, she deserves Paris, Mum. Tiffany has done so much for me. You always tell us that family comes first." I closed my eyes. The line cut off. He had hung up. I was left standing in the middle of that empty living room, holding the phone as if it were the only real thing I had left. In that moment, something inside me broke. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I smiled. Because in that empty silence, in that echo coming back from the walls with nothing to decorate them, I made a decision that would change everything. My name is Eleanor Miller. I'm 58 years old. I worked 30 years as an accountant to give my son a decent life. I was widowed 10 years ago. And this house, every nail, every tile, every window, I built it up all by myself. And what my son and that woman had just done would not go unanswered. But it wouldn't be revenge. It would be justice. And when they returned from Paris, 2 weeks later, with their suitcases full of photos and memories of the Eiffel Tower, I would have a gift prepared for them. A gift Tiffany would never forget. One that would make her pass out. Have you ever trusted someone you loved too much, only for them to betray that trust? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those we love the most. But let me tell you how all this began. 2 years ago, my house wasn't empty. It was full of life. I got up every day at 6 in the morning. I made French roast coffee, the kind my mother taught me to make when I was a kid. The aroma rose throughout the house like a warm hug. Then I made pancakes and prepared bacon and eggs with a little bit of cottage cheese. My house smelled like home. I lived alone since I was widowed, but I didn't feel lonely. I had my job at the accounting firm. my friends from the Bible study group on Thursdays, my plants on the patio that I watered every afternoon while listening to the church bells of the neighborhood. It was a quiet, decent life. Mine. One Saturday in March, Jackson arrived with a big suitcase and some news. "Mum, can we stay here for a while?" He was 32, but in that moment he looked like a scared child. "Stay? Who?" "Tiffany and I. We lost our apartment. The landlord sold it, and they only gave us a month to move out. We're looking for something, but everything is crazy expensive, Mum. It would only be a few months." How could I say no to him? He was my only son, the son I had worked double shifts for when his father died, the son I managed to send to college by selling cookies on the weekends. "Of course, my darling, this is your home." The next day, Tiffany arrived. Tall, pretty, with that straight brown hair she always wore perfectly. She wore designer clothes and spoke with an accent that tried to sound more educated than it was. "Thanks, Ellie," she said to me, and she hugged me with a perfume so strong it stung my nose. "You're an angel. I don't know what we'd do without you." No one had called me Ellie in years, but I smiled, because my son looked at her as if she were the only important thing in the world. In the beginning, everything was manageable. I kept getting up early. I made breakfast for all three of us. Tiffany came down at 10 in the morning, always in silk pajamas, and said, "Oh, Ellie, you shouldn't have bothered." But she sat down and ate 3 pancakes with eggs. Jackson went out looking for work. He came back in the evening tired, frustrated. "The economy is tough," he would say. "No one's hiring." I would make him his chamomile tea and tell him, "Be patient, son. Something will come up." Tiffany wasn't looking for work. She stayed home watching series on my television, using my living room, my dishes, my internet. But I didn't say anything, because family comes first. That's what I was taught. And if my son loved her, I had to accept her too. The months passed. 1, 2, 6. They were still there. I stopped using the living room because it was always occupied. Tiffany watched television until 3 in the morning. When I left for work at 7, she was still sleeping with the TV on. My electric bill doubled. But I didn't say anything. One day I came home from work and found 3 of Tiffany's friends in my dining room, drinking white wine from the crystal glasses that belonged to my mother. "Ellie," Tiffany yelled. "Look, let me introduce you to the girls. We're having a business meeting. We're starting an organic makeup venture." I smiled. I said hello. I went to my room. I heard their laughter until 11 at night. Jackson was finally working. He had gotten a job at an electronics store. It wasn't what he had studied for, but it was something. He came home tired, and Tiffany would say, "My love, I can't cook today. I have a headache. Should we ask your mum?" And Jackson would look at me with those boyish eyes that I couldn't deny anything to. So I cooked. After working 9 hours, I cooked for the 3 of us, and they ate in the living room watching Netflix while I washed the dishes. But even so, when Jackson hugged me and said, "Thanks, Mum, you're the best," I felt that everything was worth it, because he was happy. And if he was happy, I could put up with anything. Or so I thought. Until one afternoon I came home early from work. I entered the house quietly because I had a headache, and I heard voices in my room. In my room. I crept upstairs. The door was ajar, and what I saw changed everything. Tiffany was going through my jewelry box, not the one I left on the dresser. That was the one everyone saw, where I kept costume earrings and worthless bracelets. No, she was going through the wooden jewelry box my husband gave me for our 10th anniversary, the one I kept in the back of the closet, wrapped in a blue silk shawl, the one no one was supposed to touch. Jackson was standing beside her with his hands in his pockets. See? Tiffany was saying. Your mum has stuff she doesn't even wear. Look at this ring. When was the last time she put it on? She held in her hand the engagement ring that Robert gave me 35 years ago. A small, simple solitaire, but one he bought by selling his bicycle. That ring was the only thing I had left of him. I don't know. Jackson sounded uncomfortable. I don't think she'll be okay with it. Oh, my love, don't be silly at her. Tiffany laughed. If we sell it, we could put a down payment on an apartment. Don't you want us to have our own place? Or would you prefer to keep living with your mother forever? My heart was beating so hard, I thought they would hear me. Jackson sighed. It's my dad's ring. Exactly, your dad's. He's gone, Jackson. She doesn't even wear it. It's just gathering dust in there. Tiffany closed the jewelry box with a sharp sound. Besides, your mum owes us. Look at us. 30 years old and we still have nothing. And she has this huge house all to herself. I owed them. I was paralyzed in the hallway. Well, Jackson's voice sounded weak. Let me think about it. There's nothing to think about. Tiffany walked toward the door, and I barely had time to hide in the bathroom. Tomorrow, when your mum goes to work, we'll take what we need. She won't even notice. What if she does notice? So what? She's all alone. Who else does she have? I heard their footsteps go down the stairs. I came out of the bathroom, shaking. I walked into my room. The jewelry box was there, open on the bed. My things were scattered. My mother's gold chain. The pearl earrings I wore on my wedding day. The bracelet Jackson gave me when he turned 15 with his first summer job paycheck. Every object was a memory, and she wanted to sell them. I closed the jewelry box with trembling hands. I put it back in the closet, but I knew it wasn't safe anymore. Nothing was safe. That night I didn't have dinner with them. I told them I had a headache. I locked myself in my room and cried for the first time in months. I cried for my husband, who was no longer here to defend me. I cried for my son, who listened to that woman without saying anything. I cried for myself, for being so foolish, so naive, for having opened my house. The next morning, I went to work as always. But before I left, I took my jewelry box with me. I locked it in my desk drawer at the office. When I came back that afternoon, Jackson was watching television. "Hey, Mum," he said without looking up. "Hello, son?" I went up to my room. I opened the closet. The blue shawl was on the floor. They had looked for the jewelry box. They didn't find it, but they had looked. They knew what I had done. I went down to the kitchen. Tiffany was there, eating grapes from my fruit bowl. "Hi, Ellie," she said with a smile. "How was your day?" "Fine, thank you." "Did you lose something?" she asked, and her eyes shone with something that wasn't kindness, it was defiance. "No. Why?" "No reason." She put another grape in her mouth. "Just wondering." That night, while I was making dinner, I heard Tiffany talking on the phone in the living room. "Yeah, Mom, I know, but the old lady is really stubborn. She doesn't want to sell anything." She laughed. "Don't worry, Jackson is a fool. He does what I tell him. Soon this house is going to be ours." I froze with the knife in my hand. The tomato I was slicing rolled off the table. Tiffany continued talking. "Besides, if she won't cooperate, well, there are other ways. Jackson is her only heir, right? It's just a matter of time." In that moment, I knew the truth. Tiffany wasn't there because she loved my son. Tiffany was there because she wanted my house, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get it, even get rid of me. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me now. In your kitchen? In your room? Driving on your way to work? Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, repeating Tiffany's words in my mind. It's just a matter of time. But when the sun rose, when I heard Jackson get up to go to work, when I saw him come down the stairs in his store uniform, I convinced myself that I had misheard. Maybe she said something else. Maybe she was joking with her mum. Maybe I'm the one who's overreacting. That's how denial works. It tells you that the poison you just saw was just water. I got up. I made coffee. I made breakfast. Jackson ate quickly, as always. He gave me a kiss on the forehead. Thanks, Mum. You're the best. And I smiled, as if nothing had happened. Tiffany came down at 11. She was wearing my robe, the pink silk one Robert gave me for our last anniversary. Morning, Ellie, she yawned. Is there any coffee left? Yes, on the stove. Could you pour me some? I'm still half asleep. I got up and served her coffee. She sat at the table, checking her phone, without even looking at me. Oh, by the way, she said without looking up, some friends are coming over this afternoon. We're having a photo shoot for the venture. Could you not be here? We need the whole living room and, it's kind of awkward with someone else around. She was asking me to leave my own house. I have some things to do here. Oh, Ellie. She finally looked at me. Don't be difficult. It's only for 2 hours. Why don't you go to the market? Or downtown? You haven't been out in a while. She was right. I hadn't been out in a while. Because every time I came home, there was something to clean, clothes to wash, food to prepare. All right, I said. Thank you. I knew you'd understand. That afternoon, I left my house. I walked around the market without buying anything. I sat on a park bench and watched the pigeons peck at crumbs. I felt like them, picking up the scraps they left me. I returned at 7 in the evening. Tiffany's friends were gone, but the house was a wreck. Dirty glasses in the living room, plates with leftover food in the dining room, candy wrappers on the floor. Tiffany was in their room with the door closed, talking on the phone. I cleaned everything without saying a word, because that's what I did. Clean, cook, stay silent. The following days were the same. Tiffany asked for more and more. Ellie, can you wash this blouse? It's delicate. You can't put it in the washing machine. Ellie, can you lend me $500? I forgot my wallet. I'll pay you back on Friday. She never paid me back. Ellie, could you sleep on the couch tonight? My cousin is visiting from Chicago and has nowhere to stay. She needs your bed. And I said yes. I always said yes, because I was afraid. Afraid that if I said no, Jackson would get angry. Afraid that they would leave and leave me alone. Afraid to admit that my only son had chosen her over me. Afraid of the truth. One afternoon, my friend Brenda came to visit me. We hadn't seen each other in months. We sat in the kitchen because the living room was occupied by Tiffany and her friends. Eleanor, Brenda looked at me with concern. Are you okay? You look tired. I'm fine. Are they still living here? Yes, but they're looking for an apartment. That's a lie. They are not looking for anything. I don't know how you put up with them. Brenda lowered her voice. I'd put up with my daughter-in-law for 2 days and already want to kick her out. We laughed, but my laugh sounded fake even to me. Brenda left an hour later. Before leaving, she hugged me and whispered in my ear, "If you need me, call me. Any time." I didn't call her because calling her would be admitting that something was wrong, and I wasn't ready yet. Weeks passed. One Saturday, Jackson asked me to go to the mall with them. Tiffany wants to buy some shoes. Will you come with us, Ma? It had been a while since the three of us went out. I said yes. At the shoe store, Tiffany tried on 7 expensive designer pairs. Which one do you like best, Ellie? She asked me. The black one is nice. Yes, but the red one is more. She looked at herself in the mirror. I'll take both. Jackson pulled out his credit card. Honey, he said softly, that's $400. I don't have that much. Tiffany stared at him. Jackson, it's my birthday in 2 weeks. Are you going to deny me this? No, but... Then Jackson looked at the floor. Then he looked at me, and I knew what was coming. Mum, could you... I took out my card. I paid for the shoes. Tiffany hugged me. Thanks, Ellie. You're a sweetheart. I promise we'll pay you back. They never paid me back. On the way home, Tiffany was happy, with her shopping bags, humming a song. Jackson drove in silence. I was in the back seat, invisible. That night, lying in my bed, I looked at myself in the dresser mirror. Who was that woman? With dark circles under her eyes, dull hair, and an empty look. Where was Eleanor Miller? The woman who built a business, who raised a son alone, who faced her husband's death with dignity. Where was she? And then, in the silence of the night, I heard voices in the kitchen. Jackson and Tiffany. I got up barefoot, slowly walking down the stairs. I don't like asking her for money all the time. That was Jackson's voice. Well then, get a better job. Tiffany answered with annoyance. I'm not going to marry someone who earns a pittance. Marry? Tiffany, we talked about this. I can't get married now. I don't even have money for the ring. Exactly. That's why we need to sell things. Your mum has this huge house. Why don't we convince her to sell it and give us half? Anyway, she's old. What does she need so much space for? I was petrified on the staircase. I can't ask her that. Of course you can. Tiffany walked closer to him. My love, think about our future, the children we're going to have. Do you want to raise them here, with your mum breathing down our necks? She's lived her life. Now it's our turn. There was a silence, long, eternal. You're right, Jackson finally said. And in that moment, something inside me woke up. It wasn't pain. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I didn't go up to my room. I stayed there, on the stairs, in the darkness, listening as my son and that woman planned my life as if I no longer existed, as if I were a bother, an obstacle between them and their happiness. Finally, I heard their footsteps. They went to their room. The door closed. Only then did I go upstairs. I went into my room and sat on the bed. I didn't turn on the light. I stayed there, in the gloom, with my hands in my lap. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry, because there were no more tears. There was only a cold, clear question, like glass. What else are they hiding from me? The next morning I got up before dawn. I didn't make coffee. I didn't make breakfast. I dressed in silence and left the house at 5:30 in the morning. I took the bus and arrived at the office while it was still closed. I sat on a bench outside and waited. At 7, Mr. Peterson, the head accountant, arrived. Eleanor, what are you doing here so early? I needed to get out of the house, I simply said. He didn't ask anything else. He opened the office and we went in. I worked that day like never before. I checked bank statements. I organized invoices. I did everything mechanically without thinking, because if I thought, I would fall apart. I returned home at 8 in the evening, later than usual. When I opened the door, the living room was dark, silent. I went up the stairs. The door to Jackson's room was ajar. I heard voices. She's getting weird. That was Tiffany. Weird how? She didn't even make us breakfast today. And look at her now. Where was she? Working, I guess. Exactly, working. Tiffany paused. Did you know your mum has 2 savings accounts? One at Chase Bank and one at Bank of America? My blood ran cold. How did she know that? How do you know that? Jackson asked. I found the bank statements when I was cleaning her room. They're in her nightstand drawer. Jackson, your mum has almost $800,000 saved. $830,000 to be exact. It was my retirement. The money I had saved for 30 years. Dollar by dollar. Sacrifice by sacrifice. It was everything I had left for my old age. We can't touch that, Jackson said, but his voice sounded weak. I didn't say we should touch it. I said we know it exists. Tiffany lowered her voice. Look, I'm not saying we should steal anything from your mum, but when she, you know, is no longer around. Tiffany, it's the truth, Jackson. We can't live forever waiting. Your mum is already 58. She has high blood pressure. She smokes secretly. Have you seen how she gets out of breath when she goes up the stairs? I didn't smoke. I had never smoked in my life. Besides, Tiffany continued, legally you're her only heir. This house, her savings, everything will be yours. Ours. It's just a matter of, well, of being patient. There was a silence. What if she doesn't want to leave me anything? Jackson asked. What if she makes a will and leaves everything to a charity or something? That had never occurred to me. But now, that's why we have to make sure that doesn't happen, Tiffany said. You have to be closer to her, make her feel important, make her feel like you need her. Old people are like that. They love feeling useful. Old people. That's what I was to her. An old person. Not Eleanor. Not the woman who had worked all her life. Not the mother who gave everything for her son. An old person. An obstacle. Something to wait for to die. I walked away from the door. My legs were shaking. I went into my room and locked the door. I sat on the bed and opened the nightstand drawer. The bank statements weren't there. I always kept them in a brown folder, in the back of the drawer, under my scarves. They were gone. She had checked them. She had read them. She knew exactly how much money I had. And she wanted it. The following days were strange. Jackson started acting differently with me. He came home early from work and asked, "How was your day, Mum?" He helped me set the table. He asked me if I needed anything from the supermarket. He was following Tiffany's plan, making me feel important. So I wouldn't change my will, and I acted as if nothing had happened. Thanks, son. That's so sweet of you. I smiled. I cooked. I talked about my day, but inside I wasn't the same. One afternoon, while they were out, I did something I had never done. I checked their room. I opened drawers. I looked through their things. I looked for proof of what I already knew in my heart. In Tiffany's closet, I found new clothes, tags still attached, expensive shoes, designer bags, all bought with money they didn't have. In the nightstand drawer, I found a notebook. I opened it. It was like a diary, but not of feelings. It was a plan. On the first page it said, Operation Own Home. I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. I turned the pages with trembling hands. Everything was there. Dates, strategies, objectives. March. Move in with Ellie. Make her feel needed. April. Start using her things. Establish territory. May. Get info on her bank accounts. June. Make Jackson emotionally indispensable to her. July. Suggest Jackson ask her for a loan to invest in our future. And on the last page, written in red ink, final goal, get the house put in Jackson's name before Ellie turns 60. Old folks are harder to legally convince. If the easy way doesn't work, consider Plan B. Plan B. There were no more details, but I didn't need any more. I closed the notebook with trembling hands and put it back exactly where it was. I left the room. I went down to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so much that I spilled the water. I heard the front door open. "We're home, Mum," Jackson yelled. I took a deep breath. I dried my hands on my apron. "I'm in the kitchen." They came in with grocery bags. "We brought you your favorite bread," Jackson said, smiling. "The cornbread you like." "That's sweet, son. Thank you." Tiffany looked at me. Her dark eyes studied me for a second, as if she knew. "Are you okay, Ellie? You look pale." "I'm fine. Just a little tired." "You should rest more," she said, and there was something in her tone. "At your age, you have to take care of yourself." "At your age," I smiled. "You're right." That night, after dinner, after they went to sleep, I stayed seated in the kitchen, alone, with a cup of chamomile tea that had gone cold. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to run away. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg them to treat me well. I was going to act, but with intelligence. Because if my 30 years as an accountant had taught me anything, it was that numbers don't lie. And I was very good with numbers. I was also good at documenting things, saving evidence, building cases. If Tiffany had a plan, I would have a better one. I went up to my room. I took out my phone and started taking pictures of the missing bank statements, of the electric bills that had tripled, of the notebook I found, page by page. Then I saved everything to the cloud, in a folder I called Cooking Recipes. No one would suspect. The following days, I kept acting normal, but every time I left the house, I stopped by the bank. I spoke with my account executive. "Mrs. Miller, is everything all right?" she asked when she saw my face. "I need to change some things in my accounts," I said, "and I want information on how to protect my assets." She looked at me with understanding. It wasn't the first time she had seen a case like this. "Let me give you the contact for a trusted notary," she said in a low voice. "She specializes in asset protection for senior adults." Senior adults. I was 58 years old, but to the world, I was already an old person who needed protection. I took the contact information. 3 days later, I had an appointment with the notary. Her name was Attorney Sarah Jenkins, a woman in her 40s, with a serious but kind look. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed. "Mrs. Miller, unfortunately, your case is not unique. I see this every week. Children who see their parents as bank accounts, daughters-in-law who plan to take everything. What can I do?" "Legally, a lot. You can protect your assets. You can create a bulletproof will. You can even—" She paused. "Even what?" "You can document the economic and emotional abuse. If you have proof, you can initiate a legal process. Evict them. Report them if they have taken things without your permission." "Evict them? My own son? I don't know if I can do that." "I understand," the attorney said with empathy. "But think about this. What do you think they'll do when you are no longer useful to them? Do you think they'll take care of you? Or do you think they'll wait for you to be gone?" I knew the answer. Take your time to think about it. But in the meantime, protect what you can. Your savings, your house, your dignity. I left that office with a knot in my stomach, but also with clarity. I was no longer the Eleanor who cleaned and kept silent. I was the Eleanor who documented and planned. And when the day came that I woke up and the house was empty, when I saw that they had sold my things, when Jackson told me on the phone, "She deserves Paris, Mum," I was no longer surprised, because I was expecting it. And I already had my answer prepared. An answer that would teach them that justice does not always come from the courts. Sometimes it comes from patience, from intelligence, and from 2 weeks of perfect preparation. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed how you viewed someone? Have you ever found proof that they were lying to you? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also frees you. The day I woke up and the house was empty was a Tuesday, a common Tuesday, one of those that seemed just like all the others. I got up at 6 in the morning, as always, opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was the ceiling of my room. The same cracks I had seen for years, the same damp spot in the corner that Robert always promised to fix. I got up, put on my slippers, and went downstairs. But something was different. The silence was distinct. It wasn't the silence of a sleeping house. It was the silence of a dead house. I reached the bottom of the stairs, and the living room was empty, completely empty. At first I thought I was dreaming. I closed my eyes, opened them again. Nothing. The green velvet sofa I bought 15 years ago, gone. The coffee table where Robert and I used to have coffee on Sunday mornings, gone. The floor lamp I inherited from my mother, gone. Even the curtains, even the damned curtains, they had taken. I walked barefoot toward the dining room. My feet felt heavy, as if I were walking at the bottom of a lake. The dining room wasn't there either. The oak table where we celebrated Jackson's first birthday, the 8 perfectly matching chairs, the antique china cabinet that cost me 6 months of savings. Everything. They had taken everything. I went to the kitchen almost running. The stove was still there, the refrigerator too, but the hanging copper pots that Robert brought me from Savannah, gone. The set of ceramic plates we used for parties, gone. Even the blender my sister gave me when I got married, even that. I opened the pantry with trembling hands. The spice jars, the ones I had organized alphabetically, were gone. The coffee mugs I collected from every city I visited were gone. I opened the refrigerator, empty. They had even taken the food, the ham, the cheese, the fruit, the yogurt, even the milk, as if nothing had ever existed. I leaned against the kitchen wall and tried to breathe, but I couldn't. It was as if someone had punched me in the chest, as if the air had become solid. I ran up to my bedroom. My bed was there, my clothes too. The closet had my things. But when I opened the nightstand drawer, my watch, the gold watch Robert gave me for our 20th anniversary, was gone. I opened the closet, the shoebox where I kept emergency cash, $2,000 I had there for months, was gone. I went to the guest room, the one they used, empty. Not a single suitcase, not a piece of clothing, not a sign that they had ever lived there, like ghosts. I returned to the empty living room. I stood in the center. The morning sun came in through the curtainless windows. The light was so bright it hurt. And there, in the middle of that empty space, I found a note, a simple white note on the wooden floor. I picked it up with trembling hands. I recognized Jackson's handwriting immediately. Mum, we urgently needed money. Tiffany and I went to Paris for a few days. She always dreamed of going, and I wanted to give her that. We sold some things to be able to afford the trip. Don't worry. They weren't important thing. Just old furniture. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Love you, Jackson. I read that note 3 times, then 4. Then I read it until the words became blurry. They weren't important things, just old furniture. Just old furniture. That sofa I bought when Jackson was 3. That's where I sat to read him stories every night. That table was where we had family dinners, where Robert announced his work achievements, where Jackson blew out the candles on his birthday cakes. That lamp was my mother's, the only physical thing I had left of her after she died. Old things, they were my life. Every object in this house had a story, a memory, a piece of my soul, and he, my son, called them old things. I sat down on the floor, right there, in the middle of the empty living room, and for the first time in months, something inside me truly broke. But I didn't cry. There were no more tears, only a cold, crystalline, perfect fury. I grabbed my phone. I called Jackson. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, he answered. "Mom?" His voice sounded distant, with background noise, people talking, music. "Jackson, where are you? What happened to the furniture? The house is— Oh, yeah. Mum, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." He paused, and I heard Tiffany laughing in the background. "We sold a few things. Well, several things, a few things." "What do you mean you sold my things, my furniture?" "Don't get upset, Ma." His voice sounded so casual, so unconcerned. "It's just that Tiffany and I urgently needed the cash. We went to Paris. She always dreamed of going, you know." Paris. They went to Paris, with the money from my furniture, with the money from my life. "Jackson, that's my house. Those were my furnishings, things I bought with my work, with my— Oh, Mum, don't overreact." He interrupted me. "They're just material things. Besides—" And here his voice took on that tone he used when he was a kid and wanted to justify something bad he had done. "She deserves Paris, Mum. She deserves Paris." He wasn't saying sorry. He wasn't saying he made a mistake. He didn't understand that it was wrong. "She deserves Paris. Tiffany has done so much for me, Ma. You always tell us that family comes first, right? Well, she's my family now. And what am I?" The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. There was a silence, long, uncomfortable. "You're my family too, Mum. That's why I knew you would understand. You're the best. You always understand." I heard Tiffany in the background. "Is that your mum? Tell her we love her, and we'll bring her a souvenir from the Eiffel Tower." And then her laugh, that high-pitched fake laugh I knew so well. "Well, Ma, I have to hang up. We're about to go into the Louvre. We'll call you later. Yeah, love you." And he hung up. He just hung up. I was left there, sitting on the floor of my empty living room, holding the phone. Outside, I heard the garbage truck pass, the birds singing. Life went on. But inside me, everything had changed. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been an hour. It could have been 3. But at some point, I got up, dusted off my pajamas, and walked to the kitchen. There was one chair, a single chair they had forgotten to take, or maybe they left it out of pity. I sat down, took out my notebook, the one I always carried to jot down expenses and to-do lists, and started writing. List of what they took. Green velvet sofa, approximate value, $12,000. Wooden coffee table, value $8,000. Floor lamp, mother's inheritance, sentimental value, incalculable. Dining table with 8 chairs, value $35,000. Antique china cabinet, value $20,000. 55-inch Samsung TV, value $15,000. Pictures, 5 in total, value $10,000. Copper pots, value $5,000. Ceramic plates, service for 12, value $8,000. Blender, coffee maker toaster, value $3,000. Clay pots, value $2,000. Persian rugs, 2, value $40,000. Robert's gold watch, value $20,000. Cash, $2,000. I kept writing. Every object. Everything. At the end of the list, I totaled it up. $180,000. They had taken $180,000 worth of things to go to Paris, so that she could deserve Paris. I closed the notebook and then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile of comprehension, of absolute clarity, because in that moment I understood something fundamental. My son was lost, not the boy I raised, not the child who hugged me and said, "I love you, Mum," before going to sleep. That child no longer existed. The man who had just stolen from me to go on vacation with his girlfriend, that wasn't my son. He was a stranger who looked like him. And Tiffany was exactly what I always knew she was. A thief. An intelligent, patient thief, but a thief nonetheless. And now that they had gotten what they wanted for that trip, they would come back for more. They would come back and ask me for a loan. They would come back and convince me to sell the house because I'm too old to maintain it. They would come back and make me sign papers I wouldn't understand. They would come back to destroy me, unless I acted first. I got up from that chair, went to my room, took out the card for Attorney Sarah Jenkins, the notary, and dialed her number. Attorney Jenkins. Attorney, this is Eleanor Miller, the woman who came to see you last week. Mrs. Miller, how are you? Did something happen? Yes. My voice sounded calm, almost cold. I need to see you today. It's urgent. Can I see you in 2 hours? Does that work for you? Perfect. I hung up, showered, dressed. I put on the most formal clothes I had, a black business suit I wore for important meetings at the office. I put on makeup, not much, just enough to look professional. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was no longer the Eleanor who cleaned and kept silent. I was no longer the Eleanor who begged for love. I was the Eleanor they had created, and that Eleanor had no mercy. I arrived at the notary's office at 11 in the morning. Attorney Jenkins received me immediately. Her face showed concern when she saw me. Mrs. Miller, what happened? I told her everything. I showed her Jackson's note. I showed her the photos I had taken of the empty house. I showed her the detailed list of what they had taken. She listened in silence. Her expression went from concern to indignation. This is theft, she finally said. Aggravated theft due to breach of trust. We can file a criminal complaint against them. I don't want to report them. No, I said calmly. I want something better. What? I want to protect what I have left. I want to make sure they can never touch anything of mine again. And I paused. I want to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. The attorney smiled. It wasn't a professional smile. It was the smile of a woman who had seen these types of cases before. Tell me what you have in mind. And then I told her my plan. A plan that had been forming in my mind since I saw that empty house. A plan that required patience, intelligence, and exactly 2 weeks. When I finished explaining, the attorney nodded. It's legal, completely legal, and if I may say so, it's brilliant. Can you help me? I can, and I will, but we need to act fast. If they return in 2 weeks, we have to have everything ready for when they knock on that door. Then let's begin. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of my life. Day 1, I went to the bank. I withdrew all the money from my savings accounts and transferred it to a new account. An account only I knew about, at a different bank, with a different branch. $830,000. Safe. Day 2, I hired a locksmith. I explained that I needed to change all the locks on the house. All of them. The front door, the back door, the windows, the garage door. All of them, right? Day 3, I went to a moving company. I asked them to move all of Jackson and Tiffany's things. Where should we take them? To the garage. To the garage? Yes, all their things. Clothes, shoes, books, everything. Pack it well and store it in the garage. The workers looked at me strangely, but they didn't ask. Day 4, I went to a furniture store. I bought the basics. A new sofa, a small table, chairs. They weren't luxurious. They weren't expensive. But they were mine. Day 5, I installed security cameras, 3 of them. One at the entrance, one in the living room, one in the hallway, just in case. Day 6, I returned to Attorney Jenkins. We signed documents, many documents, a new will, a revoked power of attorney, a deed for the house exclusively in my name, with a protection clause. With this, the attorney explained, no one can sell, mortgage, or do anything with your house without your notarized consent, not even your son. Perfect. Day 7, I called my boss. I explained that I needed 2 weeks of vacation. Are you okay, Eleanor? I'm perfectly fine. I just need time to sort out some personal matters. They gave me the vacation. Day 8, I went to a psychologist. Not because I felt unwell, but because I needed documentation. Doctor, I need you to evaluate my mental state. I need a certificate stating that I am perfectly sane, that my decisions are conscious and rational. The doctor evaluated me. 3 hours of tests. In the end, she gave me a certified document. Mrs. Eleanor Miller is in full possession of her mental faculties. She shows no signs of cognitive decline, depression, or psychological manipulation. Her decisions are made freely and consciously. Perfect. Day 9, I hired a different lawyer, one specializing in civil and family law. I want to initiate a preventive eviction process. I have proof that the people who were living with me took my belongings without permission. I want to be legally prepared for when they return. The lawyer reviewed all the documents. You have a solid case. We can proceed. Day 10. I sent a certified letter to Tiffany's mother's address, the only address I had for her family. It was a simple letter. I hereby inform you that the belongings of Miss Tiffany Ramirez are being held at my residence. Please coordinate their collection within no more than 30 days. Otherwise, I will proceed according to the law. Signed by my lawyer. Day 11. I bought new plants for the patio. Roses, geraniums, bougainvillea. I planted them myself. As I dug in the dirt, I felt something healing inside me. Day 12. I invited Brenda over for lunch. My friend, the one who had offered to help me months ago. I told her everything. She cried. I didn't. Eleanor, she hugged me. You're the strongest woman I know. I'm not strong, Brenda. I'm just tired of being weak. Day 13. I cleaned the house, from top to bottom, like never before. I washed floors. I scrubbed walls. I cleaned windows. I erased every trace of them. Day 14. I went to the hairdresser. I cut my hair. I coloured it. Then I went to a store and bought new clothes. Clothes that I liked. Not old lady clothes. Coloured dresses, modern blouses. I looked at myself in the fitting room mirror. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me, and I liked that. Day 15. It was Monday. Their flight arrived at 6 in the evening. I woke up early. I made coffee. I ate breakfast quietly. I checked that everything was in order. The new locks, the things in the garage, the legal documents, the cameras working. Everything perfect. At 3 in the afternoon, I sat on my new sofa, in my living room with my new things. I turned on the television and put on a movie, and I waited. Because I knew that when they knocked on that door, when they tried to open it with their keys, when they realized they no longer worked, that's where true justice would begin. Not the justice of the courts, not the justice of revenge, the justice of consequences. The kind that arrives when people finally understand that everything you give comes back. And what they had given me, it was time to return it. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? Would you have forgiven? Or would you have acted like me? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that define us the most. I heard the taxi at 6:15 in the evening, the engine, the doors closing, the laughter, their laughter. I stayed seated on my new sofa. I didn't get up. I didn't run to the window. I took a deep breath, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, calm, in control. I heard their voices approaching the door. Tiffany was talking loudly, excited. I'm telling you, the Eiffel Tower at night is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the photos turned out amazing. I already have like 200 likes. Yeah, it was incredible. Jackson's voice sounded tired. Although the trip was really long, I just want to get in and sleep. Sleep. In my house. As if nothing had happened. I heard the sound of a key going into the lock. Once. Twice. What's going on? Jackson said. The key isn't going in right. Here, let me try. Tiffany. The sound of metal against metal, forcing it. No, it doesn't might work. Her voice now with a hint of irritation. What happened to the lock? I don't know. Try your key. More attempts, more forcing. And then the doorbell rang. Ding dong. I got up slowly. I smoothed my new dress. That navy blue dress had bought. Simple, elegant, dignified. I walked toward the door. My steps sounded different on the wood floor. Firmer, more confident. I reached the door. I took a deep breath. And I opened it. Jackson's face was the first thing I saw. Tan, rested, happy. He was wearing a Paris cap and a new shirt. Tiffany was beside him with enormous sunglasses. Perfect hair, impeccable makeup. Both were carrying large suitcases. Suitcases that probably cost more than my old sofa. Mom, Jackson smiled. We couldn't open it. What happened to the... He stopped. He looked at me. He really looked at me. His eyes scanned my face. My short hair, coloured a chestnut with copper highlights. My subtle but present makeup. My new dress. Mum? His voice changed. What did you do to yourself? Hello, Jackson. My voice was calm, almost kind. I see you're back from Paris. Yeah, it was incredible. We brought you this. He pulled out a small paper bag with an Eiffel Tower magnet. For your fridge. I stared at the magnet, a $5 magnet, in exchange for $180,000 worth of my things. What a thoughtful gift, I said without reaching out to take it. There was an awkward silence. Tiffany took off her sunglasses. She looked me up and down. Wow, Ellie, you look different? Did you go to the salon? Yes. It looks good on you. She smiled, but it was that fake smile I knew so well. Well, we're exhausted. The flight was endless. Can you help us with the bags? No. I didn't move. No? Tiffany laughed, as if I had made a joke. No. Jackson looked at me confused. Mum, are you okay? Why didn't you open the door? And why don't our keys work? Because I changed the locks. Silence. A silence so deep I could hear a dog barking 3 houses down. What? Jackson laughed nervously. Why would you do that? Because you don't live here anymore. The smile vanished from his face. Mum, I don't understand. Is this a joke? It's not a joke, Jackson. My voice remained calm but firm. You sold my belongings without my permission. You took things that weren't yours. You went on a trip with the money you got by stealing from me. You are no longer welcome in this house. Tiffany took a step forward. Her face had completely changed. There was no more smile. Wait, wait. Her voice rose. What are you talking about? We didn't steal anything. We just sold old furniture that you weren't even using. Furniture that was mine, in my house without my permission. But Jackson is your son, Tiffany almost yelled. This is his house too. No, I said with absolute calm. This is my house. It's in my name. I bought it. I paid for every brick. And you, I looked at both of them. You are no longer welcome here. Jackson dropped his suitcase. Mum, his voice cracked. You can't do this. Where are we going to go? I don't know, but it's not my problem. We're your family. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't betray. Family doesn't sell their mother's memories to go on vacation. They were just things, Tiffany screamed. Material things. You always said family is more important than things. Something in her tone made me laugh. It wasn't a kind laugh. It was a laugh of recognition. You're right, Tiffany. Family is more important. That's why my family, my husband's memories, the objects I built with my work, those are my family, and you. I looked her directly in the eyes. You were never family. You were an invader, a patient thief. Her face turned red. How dare you? I dare because it's my house, because I'm fed up, because I found your notebook. She turned pale. What notebook? Operation Own Home, I said calmly. I found it. I read everything. Your plans, your strategies, your plan B. Jackson looked at me. What is she talking about? Ask your girlfriend, I said. Ask her about the plan you had to take my house, my savings. Ask her what you were planning to do with me when I was no longer useful to her. Mum, you're making things up. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. I think you need to see a doctor. Maybe the loneliness is getting to you. No, son, I finished for him. What got to me was trusting you. What got to me was seeing how you allowed this woman to turn you into a thief. I'm not a thief! His scream echoed down the street. I saw the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Rodriguez, peek out her window. Then what do you call selling your mother's things without her permission? I asked. What do you call taking her gold watch, emptying her refrigerator, taking even her spices? I thought you wouldn't mind. His voice was small now. You said family was first. And it is, but you are not my family. You haven't been for a long time. Tiffany exploded. You're a crazy old lady, she yelled. After all we did for you, we kept you company. You weren't alone. And this is how you repay us? Company? My voice rose for the first time. Company? You used my house as a hotel. You ate my food. You wasted my electricity, my water, my internet. You kicked me out of my own living room. You made me sleep on the couch so your cousin could have my bed. You asked me for money you never gave back. You went through my private things. You planned to rob me. And now you tell me you kept me company. At least I was here. Tiffany had tears of rage. You have no one else. Without us, you're alone. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd had in months. I'd rather be alone than be surrounded by thieves. Stop it! Jackson raised his hands. Mum, please, we made a mistake. I'm sorry, I really am sorry. But we can't be left on the street. Give me a chance. We can talk. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. I'm your son. You are. And that's exactly why it hurts more. I felt a lump in my throat, but I didn't cry. But you made your decision, Jackson. You chose this woman over me. You chose to steal from me over respecting me. You chose Paris over your mother. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. And now I choose my dignity over you. Tiffany took a threatening step toward me. You know what? I feel sorry for you. You're a bitter old woman who's going to die alone. And when that happens, do you know who will inherit everything? Jackson. It'll all be ours anyway. I smiled again. No, it won't be. What? I changed my will, I said with absolute calm. I hired a notary. I drew up new documents. This house has protection clauses. My savings are protected. And when I die, everything will go to a foundation for abused women. Her face crumpled. No, you can't do that. I already did. I have all the certified documents. Plus, I pulled out my phone. I have everything recorded. Every word you said, every threat, every insult. Jackson froze. You're recording us? Not just me. I subtly pointed to the cameras I had installed. The house has surveillance now. Everything is recorded. Tiffany staggered. Are you crazy? Completely crazy. No, I'm sane. In fact, I have a psychological certificate that proves it. I pulled the folded document from my pocket, just in case you tried to say I was senile or that someone manipulated me. Tiffany couldn't speak. Her face was red, then pale, then red again. Jackson! Her voice was trembling. Jackson, say something, do something. But Jackson only looked at me. His eyes were full of tears. Mom, his voice was a whisper. Do you really hate me that much? Those words hurt me, more than I expected. I don't hate you, son, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time. I love you. I have always loved you. That's why this hurts so much. But love doesn't mean allowing myself to be destroyed. Love doesn't mean being your victim. But we're family. And that's precisely why I expected more from you. I expected you to protect me, to respect me. But you chose something else. And now, I took a deep breath. Now you have to leave. Where? Tiffany screamed. We have no money. We have nowhere to go. You have the money from my furniture. $180,000 to be exact. Get yourselves a hotel, or go to your mum's, but you can't stay here. Our things are inside. I smiled, and that's when I said it. The words I had been waiting to say since I opened that door. They are not inside, I said. I prepared a gift for you. Come. I walked toward the garage. They followed me, confused. Jackson carried his suitcase. Tiffany was shaking with rage. I reached the garage door. I took out the new key. I put it in the lock. And I opened it. The garage light turned on automatically, and there it was. Everything. Boxes and boxes stacked neatly, labeled Jackson's clothes, Tiffany's shoes, books, personal items, cosmetics, electronics, everything perfectly packed, everything organized, like a professional move. Tiffany froze at the garage entrance. Her mouth fell open. She took a step forward, then another. Her eyes scanned the boxes, the piles, everything they had accumulated in those 2 years, all their lives packed up. What? What is this? Her voice was barely a whisper. Your gift, I said calmly. I packed all your belongings. They are complete. I checked 3 times. Nothing is missing. You can take them whenever you want. No. Tiffany shook her head. No, no, no. I even hired a moving company. If you give me an address, they can take everything tomorrow morning. Free of charge. I'll pay. You can't do this. Tiffany turned to me, furious. This is our house. We live here. Lived. Past tense. Not anymore. Jackson. She grabbed his arm. Say something. She can't just kick us out like this. Jackson was looking at the boxes. His face was pale. Completely pale. Mom. His voice trembled. Are you really going to do this? It's already done. But I'm your son. I'm your only son. I know. And this is how you treat me? You pack my things like I'm a stranger? Yes, I finished. Because that's what you became to me, Jackson. The son I raised wouldn't have robbed his mother. The son I raised wouldn't have allowed his girlfriend to plan to take everything I own. I didn't know about that notebook, he yelled. But you knew you sold my things. You knew it was wrong. And yet you did it. And when I called you, when I begged you to explain, you told me she deserved Paris. His eyes filled with tears. I wanted to make her happy. And what about my happiness? What about my pain? Did you ever think about me? He didn't answer, because he couldn't, because he knew the answer. Tiffany started to hyperventilate. No, no, no. She paced in circles. This can't be happening. Not this. She walked up to a box. She opened it. She pulled out a dress. One of those expensive dresses she used to buy. She clutched it against her chest. I worked for this. All of this is mine. Mine. And you can take it, I said. All of it. Every shoe, every blouse, every accessory. But you can't take it in my house. This house is Jackson's too. No, it's not. Legally, this house is completely mine. I have the deeds. I have everything documented. And even if it were his, I looked at my son, he made his decision when he chose to sell my belongings. Jackson dropped to the floor. He sat there, among the boxes, with his head in his hands. And he cried. He cried like a child. My child. I felt something break inside me, a last part of my heart that still protected him. But I didn't give in. I couldn't give in. Because giving in meant going back to being the Eleanor who cleaned and kept silent, the Eleanor who allowed herself to be hurt, and that Eleanor was already dead. Tiffany lunged at me. You did this, she screamed. You poisoned him against me. We were happy until… She didn't finish the sentence, because her eyes landed on something behind me. Her face changed. She turned completely white. Her legs started to tremble. No, she whispered. I turned around to see what she was looking at. There, on the back wall of the garage, something was hanging. The notebook. Her notebook. Operation Own Home. Enlarged. Photocopies. Every page. Hung up like a mural. For everyone to see. Every plan. Every strategy. Every lie, everything exposed. Tiffany started trembling more. How? How? I found it weeks ago, I said. I photographed it. I documented it. And now it's backed up in several places, just in case you try to say it never existed. Her knees gave way. She fell to the floor, and she passed out. Jackson screamed, "Tiffany! Run to her! Tiffany, wake up!" He slapped her cheeks. He shook her. She didn't respond. "Mom, do something! Call an ambulance!" I stood still. "She'll wake up. It's just a faint from shock." "How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold, Jackson. I'm just tired." At that moment, Tiffany opened her eyes. She looked at Jackson, then at me, and she burst into tears, hysterical crying, uncontrolled. "It's over," she sobbed. "The plan is over. Everything." Jackson held her, confused. "What are you talking about? What plan?" But she just cried. I turned around. "You have until tomorrow at 6 in the evening to take your things out of the garage," I said without looking at them. "After that, I'll hire a company to donate everything to charity." "Mom!" Jackson's voice was a plea. "Please." "Goodbye, Jackson." I walked toward the door that connected the garage to the house. Before closing it, I turned around one last time. They were there. My son sitting on the floor, hugging a sobbing woman, surrounded by boxes, surrounded by the consequences of their actions. And I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge. I only felt peace. The peace of knowing that I had done the right thing, that I had chosen my dignity, that I had chosen to choose myself. I closed the door. I locked it. And I walked back to my living room. My new living room, with my new furniture, with my new plants, with my new life. Outside, I heard screams, pleas, banging on the door. But I didn't go back. I couldn't go back. Because going shouting meant losing myself again. And I had already found myself. I didn't sleep much that night. I heard when they finally left, dragging suitcases, crying, calling someone on the phone. At 11 at night, everything was silent. I looked out the window. They were gone. I went down to the garage. The boxes were still there, intact. On the floor there were tear marks. And a note written in Jackson's shaky handwriting. "Mum, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fix this. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. So sorry. Forgive me for everything. I love you, Jackson." I took the note. I read it. And I cried. I cried everything I hadn't cried in weeks. I cried for the son I lost. I cried for the family we never had. I cried for the wasted years. But I also cried with relief, because finally I was free. The first 3 days were the hardest, not because I regretted it, but because the silence was so profound that it hurt. The first morning after they left, I woke up with the sun coming through the window. There was no sound of voices, no television on, no footsteps on the floor above, just silence. I got up. I went down to the kitchen. I made coffee for one person. I sat at my new table. In my kitchen that smelled clean, new, mine. And I cried into my coffee. I didn't cry for them. I cried for myself, for the years I lost, for the times I kept silent. For every moment I chose false peace over my dignity. I cried for the Eleanor who no longer existed. But when I finished crying, I wiped my tears, I drank my coffee, and I moved on. Because that was the only thing I could do, just live. The second day, I went back to the garage. The boxes were still there, intact. No one had come for them. I put on old clothes, gloves, and I started going through them. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe some sign that Jackson truly loved me. Maybe a letter, a photo of us. Something that would tell me I had meant something to him. I opened the first box. Tiffany's clothes, expensive dresses, designer tags. Some still had the price tags on. $120 for a dress, $250 for another, money they didn't have. I opened another box. Shoes, dozens of pairs, heels, designer sneakers, boots. While I wore the same shoes for years, I kept opening boxes. Makeup, hundreds of products, very expensive creams, imported perfumes, electronics, a new tablet, wireless headphones, a professional camera. How much of this had they bought with my money, with the money I lent them, with the electricity money I paid, with the food money I bought, with the money from my sold furniture? Finally, I reached a small box, labeled Jackson's Important Papers. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside there were documents, his birth certificate, his college degree, old photos. And there, a photograph. It was of Jackson when he was 7. We were at the beach. Robert was still alive. The three of us were smiling. Jackson had a sand bucket in his hand and a huge smile. I was hugging him. He looked so happy, so innocent. Where was that boy? At what point did he become the man who robbed his mother? I touched the photograph with my finger, and then I saw something written on the back, in Jackson's childhood handwriting. My mum is the best mum in the world. I love her very, very much. Jackson, 7 years old. Something broke inside me. I sat on the garage floor, surrounded by boxes, holding that photograph. And I understood something. The 7-year-old Jackson did love me. The 7-year-old Jackson wasn't bad. But time, decisions, Tiffany, had changed him. And I couldn't save him. No one could save him except himself. I put the photograph in my blouse pocket. I would keep that one. The rest they could take or lose. It no longer mattered. The third day, Brenda came to visit me. She knocked on the door at 10 in the morning with a container of brisket and homemade tortillas. "Don't tell me you already ate," she said as soon as I opened the door, "because you need to eat some home cooking after all this." I hadn't eaten well in 3 days, just coffee and bread. "Thanks, Brenda." We went into the kitchen. She set the plates, heated the food, and we sat down. We ate in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke. "How are you?" "I don't know." "Do you regret it?" I thought about it. I really thought about it. "No," I finally said. "I don't regret it. But it hurts." "It's normal. He's your son." "He is, but Brenda, have you ever had to choose between loving someone and respecting yourself?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, with my ex-husband, the father of my children. He was an alcoholic. He hit me, but I loved him, or I thought I loved him. It took me years to understand that loving him didn't mean destroying myself." "And what did you do?" "I left him," she simply said. "I took my children and left. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it was also what saved me." "Did you ever forgive him?" "Yes, years later, when he changed, when he stopped drinking, when he begged for my forgiveness on his knees." Brenda took my hand. "But I didn't go back to him because forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean returning to where you were hurt." Her words stayed with me. "Do you think Jackson will change?" "I don't know, Eleanor. But what I do know is that people only change when they face the consequences of their actions. If you had forgiven him, if you had let them stay, Do you think they would have learned anything? No. Exactly. Sometimes the greatest love you can give is letting someone fall so they can learn to get up. I cried again, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was from understanding. Brenda stayed with me all afternoon. We watched a soap opera, talked about unimportant things. She left when it got dark. Before she left, she hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "and your husband would be too." Those words gave me strength. The fourth day, I received a call. It was from an unknown number. I hesitated to answer, but something told me to. "Hello? Mrs. Miller?" It was a young woman's voice. "This is Megan Ramirez." The last name sounded familiar, but I didn't place it. "Yes? I'm Tiffany's sister." My blood ran cold. "Ah, please, don't hang up." Her voice sounded desperate. I want to tell you something." "I'm listening." There was a pause. I heard her breathing. "I want to apologize." I didn't expect that. "Apologize? You? Why?" "Because I knew." Her voice cracked. "I knew what Tiffany was doing, what they were planning. She told me about it. She showed off that notebook to me. She laughed at you. She said it was so easy to manipulate you. And I didn't say anything." I closed my eyes. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because Tiffany is my sister, and I was afraid she would cut me out of her life. She's always been like that, controlling, manipulative. But she's my sister, and She started to cry. "I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I should have done something." I didn't know what to say. "Where are they now?" I asked. "They're with my mum, at her house. Jackson's. He's doing really badly. He won't leave his room. He won't eat. He just cries." "And Tiffany?" "Tiffany," Megan paused. "Tiffany is furious. She says you're a snake, that you betrayed her, that she's going to what?" "I don't know. She talks about lawsuits, lawyers, proving that you're not of sound mind. But," Megan sighed, "it's no use. My mum already kicked her out. She told her she can't live here with that attitude, that if she lost her place, it was her own fault." Interesting. Even Tiffany's mother saw the truth. "And Jackson? He only asks about you, all the time. Do you think my mum will forgive me? Do you think I can call her? How could I have been so stupid?" Megan paused. "Mrs. Miller, I don't know you, but I think you did the right thing. My sister is toxic, and Jackson needed this lesson." "Thank you for calling," I said softly. "Is there anything else?" She spoke quickly, as if afraid I would hang up. "Tiffany has a suitcase full of your things. Things she stole before going to Paris. Jewelry, documents, cash. She hid it at a friend's house. Can I give you the address, so you can get your things back?" Of course. Of course there were more stolen things. "Give me the address." She gave it to me. A house in the village. "And Mrs. Miller." Her voice was barely a whisper. "If Jackson ever really changes, if he learns, do you think you—" She didn't finish the question, but I understood. "If he ever becomes the man he should have always been," I said. "If he recognizes his mistakes and truly changes, not just in word, then we'll talk. But until that day, he needs to be away from me." "I understand. Thank you for listening to me." She hung up. I was left sitting with the phone in my hand. Tiffany still had my things, and there was a part of me that wanted to get them back. But there was another part, a bigger part, that said, let it go. It doesn't matter anymore. The fifth day, I made a decision. I called Attorney Jenkins. Attorney, I need your help with something. Tell me. I want to make a donation. I want to create a fund, small but significant, for women who are in situations of family abuse, so they have legal resources, advice, protection. There was a silence. Mrs. Miller, are you sure? Completely. I've been thinking. What I went through wasn't physical violence, but it was abuse, emotional, economic. And I know there are many women going through the same thing. Women who don't know how to leave, who don't have resources, who are afraid. How much were you thinking of donating? I thought about it. $10,000 to start, I said, from my savings. And every month I'm going to set aside a portion of my salary. It's not a lot, but it is a lot. The attorney sounded excited. It's more than enough to start. We can set up a trust. I can connect you with organizations. This can help many women, Mrs. Miller. That's what I want. Something good to come out of all this. And so it was. In the next 2 weeks, with the help of the attorney, we established the fund. It would be called the Ellie Fund, for the dignity of women. It wasn't a pretentious name, it wasn't elegant, but it was honest. And it was mine. The 6th day I went to recover my things. The address Megan gave me was a modest house in the village. I knocked on the door. A woman in her 30s opened it. She looked nervous. Mrs. Miller? Yes, Megan called me. She said I would be coming. She opened the door completely. Come in. The suitcase is in the living room. I went in. There it was. A large black suitcase. The woman bit her nails. I didn't know they were stolen goods, she quickly said. Tiffany told me they were hers, that she just needed to store them for a while. I'm sorry. Don't worry. It's not your fault. I opened the suitcase, and everything was there. The wooden jewelry box, the one my husband gave me. The bank statements they had taken from my room. The gold watch. Family photographs. Even cash. About $500. Things Tiffany planned to sell or keep for herself. I closed the suitcase. Thank you for keeping them safe. Aren't you going to report her? The woman asked. I thought about it. I could do it. I had proof. I had witnesses. I could legally ruin Tiffany. But no, I finally said. I'm not going to report her. Why not? Because justice is already collecting its debt, I said. She has already lost everything. She no longer has my house. She no longer has access to my money. Even her own mother kicked her out. And that, I picked up the suitcase. That's enough. The woman looked at me with respect. You are very generous. I'm not generous, I'm just tired. And I want peace, not revenge. I left that house with my things, but I didn't feel victory. I only felt closure. The 7th day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my sister, Bethany. She lived in Miami. We didn't talk much. Life had separated us. But she had always been my friend when we were girls. Eleanor? Her voice sounded surprised. Is that you? Yes, it's me. Are you okay? You haven't called in years. I know, and I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. Bethany, I need to tell you something. And I told her everything. From the beginning. From when Jackson and Tiffany came to live with me. To the moment I kicked them out. She listened in silence. When I finished, she didn't speak for a minute. I thought she was angry. that she was going to scold me for kicking out my son. But then she said, "Eleanor, I am so proud of you." I was surprised. "What?" "You were always the good one, the one who sacrificed, the one who put up with everything. And I always worried about you. I always thought that someday you would break, but you didn't break." Her voice cracked. "You stood up, and that is the bravest thing I have ever seen." I started to cry. "I don't feel brave." "But you are. You know what? I'm going to visit you. Next month. We're going to spend time together, like when we were girls." "I would love that." "And Eleanor," she paused, "Mum would be proud of you. Dad too. And Robert. Robert would definitely be proud." Those words healed me, more than anything else could have, because all this time I had wondered if Robert would approve of my decision, if he would think I was too hard on his son. But now I knew he would understand, because he knew me. He knew how much I could bear, and he would know when enough was enough. The following days passed slowly but steadily. I went back to work. My colleagues noticed the change in me. They didn't ask much, but Mr. Peterson, the head accountant, told me, "Eleanor, you look different, lighter." "That's because I am," I said with a smile. And it was true. I had lost my son. I had lost the idea of the family I thought I would have, but I had won myself. One afternoon, while I was watering my new plants on the patio, I saw something. A monarch butterfly, perched on one of my bougainvillea. It was beautiful, bright orange with black. Monarch butterflies migrate thousands of miles. They travel alone. They face the wind, the cold, the predators, but they always get to where they need to be, because they know where they are going. I was like that butterfly. I had migrated from my old life to my new life. I had left behind the pain, the abuse, the denial, and I was getting to where I needed to be. 3 weeks after the day of the confrontation, I received a letter. It arrived in the mail, handwritten, in Jackson's handwriting. My heart beat fast when I saw it. I sat down in the living room. I opened it with trembling hands. "Mum, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you want to hear from me. But I need to write to you. I've had a lot of time to think. Too much time. And every day that passes, I understand more what I did. What I did to you. I have no excuses. I can't blame Tiffany. I can't blame anyone but myself. I chose to sell your things. I chose to go to Paris. I chose to ignore your pain. And I did it because I lost myself. Because I let someone else dictate my life. Because I was a coward. Tiffany and I broke up. We are no longer together. She went to San Diego with a guy she met. Someone with money. Someone who can give her what I never could. And I'm living with a friend. I sleep on a couch. I work washing dishes at a restaurant. And it's okay, because it's what I deserve. Mum, I'm not writing to ask for your forgiveness. Well, yes, I am asking for it. But I know words aren't enough. I'm writing to tell you that I finally understood. I understood that you were the best mother in the world, that you gave me everything, that you sacrificed your happiness for mine. And I repaid you with betrayal. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to talk to me again. I just want you to know that I'm changing, truly, not for you, but for me, because I need to be better. I love you, Mum. I have always loved you, even when I didn't show it. And someday, if someday you can see me again, I hope to be the man you deserve as a son. With all my love, Jackson. I read that letter 3 times, and I cried. I cried for the son I lost, and I cried for the son I might, someday, recover. But it wasn't today. It wasn't tomorrow. It was someday. A day when he had truly changed, when his actions backed up his words. I folded the letter, I put it in a drawer, and I kept going. Because that was what I had to do. Keep going, not with resentment, not with hatred, but with hope. Hope that he would find his way, hope that he would learn what he needed to learn, and hope that I would continue to heal. That night I sat on my patio, under the stars, with a cup of chamomile tea, and I thought about everything that had happened, the woman I was, and the woman I had become. And I understood something fundamental. Sometimes the greatest love you can give is letting go. Letting go of the people who hurt you. Letting go of the expectations of what should have been. Letting go of the pain. And embracing the peace. The peace of knowing you did the right thing. The peace of knowing you chose your dignity. The peace of knowing that time always brings justice. And even though Jackson and Tiffany hadn't faced all the consequences of their actions yet, I knew they would. Because life has a way of collecting what is owed. Not with revenge, not with punishment, but with natural consequences. And I could live with that. Have you ever had to let go of someone you love to save yourself? Have you ever chosen your peace over your family? It's one of the hardest decisions. But sometimes, it's the only way to survive. If you've been through something like this, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments. A year passed. A whole year since the day I kicked Jackson and Tiffany out of my house. A year in which my life changed in ways I never imagined. The Ellie Fund had helped 14 women. 14 women who were in similar situations to mine. Women who needed legal advice, protection, a way out. Every month I received letters from them, thank you notes, stories of how they had recovered their dignity. Those letters healed me. My house no longer felt empty. It felt full of peace, of plants, of light. Brenda came to visit me every week. Sometimes we cooked together. Sometimes we just sat on the patio drinking coffee and watching the sunset. Bethany came from Miami 3 times, the last time she stayed for a whole week. It was like getting my sister back, getting my true family back. My job was going well. I had been given a promotion. I was now the supervisor of the accounting department. And I was fine. Not perfect, not without scars, but fine. But while my life had improved, theirs hadn't. Not because I did anything, not because I sought revenge, but because life always collects its debts. I found out about Jackson by accident. It was a Saturday. I was at the supermarket buying vegetables when I heard a familiar voice. Mrs. Miller? I turned around. It was Megan, Tiffany's sister. Megan. Hello. She looked different. More mature, more serious. How are you? She asked. Fine. And you? I'm fine, but... She hesitated. I don't know if you want to know, but... Jackson? My heart sped up. What about him? He's... not doing well. Megan lowered her voice. He lives alone now, in a small apartment in Midtown. He works 2 jobs, one as a waiter during the day, the other as a security guard at night. 2 jobs. My son, who had a college degree, working as a waiter and a guard. And Tiffany? I asked, although I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Tiffany? Megan sighed. She's in San Diego, or she was. The last I heard of her, she was living with a man a businessman. She thought she had gotten what she always wanted: money, luxuries, trips. And the guy turned out to be married. His wife showed up one day at the apartment where they lived. She caused a scene, kicked him out of everything, and left Tiffany on the street, literally with no money, no nothing. Karma. She had to borrow money for the bus ride back to New York City, Megan continued. Now she's living with my mum again, but my mum can't take her anymore. She spends all her time locked in her room, depressed. She says everyone betrayed her, that the world is unfair. Megan looked me straight in the eyes. But between you and me, Mrs. Miller, she brought it on herself. Everything that happened to her, she brought it on herself. I didn't say anything, because she was right. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I only felt sadness. Sadness for the lost time, for the ruined lives, for the consequences that could have been avoided. Does Jackson know where I am? I asked. Yes, but he doesn't dare to look for you. He says he doesn't deserve it. That first he has to... Megan searched for the words. That first he has to become someone better. Maybe he was learning. If you see him, I said carefully, tell him that I wish him the best, that I hope he finds his way. I will tell him. We said goodbye. She left with her shopping cart. I stayed there, in the vegetable aisle, holding a bunch of cilantro, processing. 6 months later, I received another piece of news. This time it was from Brenda. She had a cousin who worked in a hospital, and her cousin had seen something. We were sitting in my living room drinking chamomile tea, when Brenda said, "Eleanor, there's something you should know." What? It's about Tiffany. My body tensed. What's wrong with her? She's in the hospital, the general hospital. My cousin saw her 2 days ago. What happened to her? Brenda hesitated. I'm not sure of all the details, but it seems that she tried to take her own life. Pills. Her mother found her in time and called the ambulance. My blood ran cold. As much as I hated her, as much damage as she had done to me, I didn't want her to die. Is she okay? Physically, yes, but mentally... Brenda shook her head. My cousin says she's doing very badly, that she doesn't talk to anyone, that she just stares at the ceiling. Is anyone visiting her? Her mom goes every day, but... My cousin says Tiffany doesn't even look at her, or talk to her. It's like she's not even there anymore. The emptiness. I remembered the words I had planned to include in my story from the beginning, the words about karmic justice. And in that moment, I understood something. Tiffany had lost everything. Not because of me, not because I had destroyed her, but because she destroyed herself. With her lies, with her greed, with her inability to love anything more than money. And now she was alone, in a hospital, staring at the ceiling, with no one who truly loved her, with nothing. 2 days later, I did something that surprised me. I went to the hospital. I don't know why. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was closure. Maybe it was compassion. I arrived at the general hospital. I asked for Tiffany Ramirez. The nurse looked at me strangely. Are you family? No, but I know the family. She's on the 3rd floor, room 312, but I don't know if visitors are even allowed. I went up to the 3rd floor. My heart was beating fast. I reached the door of the room 312. It was ajar. I knocked softly. Can I come in? There was no answer. I pushed the door open slowly, and there she was. Tiffany, lying in a hospital bed, connected to IVs with unwashed hair, no makeup, with her gaze lost on the ceiling. She looked nothing like the woman I knew. That woman had a sparkle in her eyes. She had arrogance. She had that fake but confident smile. This woman, this woman was empty. I approached slowly. Tiffany. Her eyes moved slowly toward me. There was no immediate recognition. Then her eyes widened. You... Her voice was hoarse, weak. What are you doing here? I don't know, I said honestly. I knew you were here and I came. Did you come to laugh? Her eyes filled with tears. To see how I ended up? To tell me you told me so? I sat down in the chair next to her bed. No, I came to see how you were doing. She laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was a broken, empty laugh. How am I doing? She repeated. I'm destroyed. Happy? No, I'm not happy. You should be. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You won. You were right. I was a terrible person. And now I have exactly what I deserve. Nothing. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. Everything I touched was destroyed, she continued. Jackson hates me. My mum is fed up with me. I don't have real friends. I never did. I only had people who wanted something from me. And when I had nothing left to give, everyone left. Yes, her voice cracked. They left me, like I left Jackson, like I used everyone. She fell silent, wiping her tears with the hospital sheet. Do you know what the worst part is? She finally said. What? That you were right. You called me a thief. You told me I would end up alone. And I laughed. I thought you were a crazy old lady who didn't understand how the world worked. There were those words, crazy old lady, the same words she had screamed at me that day. But it turns out that you... She looked me straight in the eyes. You did understand, and I didn't. I didn't understand anything. There was a long silence. Why did you come? She asked in a small voice. Why did you come to see the person who hurt you so much? I asked myself the same question. Why had I come? Because I searched for the right words. Because despite everything, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to suffer anymore. You've suffered enough. The consequences of your actions have already arrived. So do you forgive me? Her eyes had a glimmer of hope. I thought about it. I really thought about it. I don't know, I said honestly. What you did still hurts me, but I wish you peace. I hope you learn, that you change, that you find a way to be happy without hurting others. Her tears grew heavier. I don't know if I can change. Everyone can change, if we truly want to. I got up from the chair. But it has to be your decision. Not for me. Not for Jackson. For you. I walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned around. Tiffany, life always collects its debts. You are experiencing that now. But also, life gives second chances. If you truly change, if you truly become someone better, perhaps you will find the peace you were looking for. I didn't wait for a reply. I left that room. And when I closed that door, I felt like I was closing a chapter, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with understanding. The understanding that justice does not always come from the courts. Sometimes it comes from karma, from natural consequences, from life itself. 3 months later, I received a call from Megan. Mrs. Miller, I wanted you to know something. What happened? Tiffany is in therapy, truly. She's been going every week for 2 months. And she's working at a coffee shop. Nothing glamorous, but it's honest work. Interesting. I'm happy for her. She also asked me to give you something. Megan paused. A letter. Can I send it to you? Yes. A week later, the letter arrived. It was short, written in shaky handwriting. Mrs. Miller, I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I am trying to be better. Not for you, not for Jackson, for me, because I don't want to be that person who destroyed everything she touched again. Thank you for visiting me in the hospital. No one else did. That meant more than you can imagine. Tiffany. And Jackson? What happened to Jackson? I didn't hear from him for almost a year and a half, until one day, on a rainy Tuesday, someone knocked on my door. I opened it, and there he was. But it wasn't the Jackson I had known. It wasn't the spoiled child. It wasn't the man who robbed me. It was someone different, thin, with dark circles under his eyes, wearing simple, clean clothes, with the calloused hands of someone who works hard. Hello, Mum. His voice was trembling. Jackson, I know I shouldn't be here. I know I don't have the right. But his eyes filled with tears. I needed to see you. I needed to tell you. He broke down. He collapsed right there in the entrance of my house. And he cried. He cried like he hadn't in years. And I cried too. Because he was my son. And despite everything, he was still my son. But I didn't let him in. Not yet. Jackson, I said softly, you can't come in. Not yet. I know, he said, sobbing. I know, I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry, that I'm working, that I'm changing, that someday, if someday you can forgive me, I want to show you that I'm different. Are you in therapy? Yes, for 6 months, twice a week. Are you working honestly? Yes, in a restaurant. And studying at night. I want to finish a master's degree in administration, so I can be a better person. I looked at him. I really looked at him. And I saw something I hadn't seen in years. I saw my son, not the man Tiffany had created. I saw the boy I raised. Jackson, I said calmly, I'm glad you're changing. Really. But I need time. I need to see that this change is real, not just words. I understand. Maybe in a few months we can talk, have a coffee somewhere neutral, and talk for real. His eyes lit up. Really? Really, but calmly, step by step, no rush. Yes, whatever you say. He wiped his tears. Mum, thank you. Thank you for not closing the door completely. You are my son. You will always be my son. But I need to protect myself. And I need to see actions, not just words. I understand. And I promise I will show you that I've changed. He left, walking in the rain, with his shoulders slumped, but with something he didn't have before. Hope. That night, I sat in my living room, in my quiet house, in my house full of peace, and I thought about everything that had happened. Tiffany alone in a hospital, then working in a coffee shop, trying to rebuild herself. Jackson working 2 jobs, going to therapy, trying to be better. The natural consequences. I hadn't destroyed them. They had done it themselves. And now they were paying the price. Not because I wanted it, not because I had done anything, but because life always collects its debts. Brenda was right when she told me that sometimes the greatest love is letting someone fall. because only by falling do they learn to get up. And Jackson was learning. Maybe someday, when he had truly changed, when his actions backed up his words, we could rebuild something. Not the relationship we had. That one had died. But maybe a new one. One based on respect, on honesty, on clear boundaries. One based on mutual dignity. But that was for the future. For now, I was fine. I was at peace. And that was enough. Because I had learned something fundamental. Justice is not always fast. But it always comes. Not with revenge, not with punishment from your hand, but with the natural consequences of one's own actions. Tiffany called me a crazy old lady. She told me I would die alone. She told me she would win everything. And years later, she was the one who ended up alone in a hospital. She was the one who lost everything. She was the one who faced the emptiness. Not because I did it to her, but because life always collects its debts. And I just had to wait and protect myself and live my life with dignity. The rest, karma did it. Today I turn 60 years old, 60 years of life, 60 years of learning, 60 years of falling and getting up. I am sitting on my patio, the same patio I replanted 2 years ago. The bougainvillea are blooming, pink, purple, orange, like a garden reborn from the ashes. Like me. I have a cup of coffee in my hands, French roast coffee with cinnamon, the same one my mother taught me to make. And I am at peace, complete peace. It is not the peace of one who has not suffered. It is the peace of one who suffered and survived. 2.5 years have passed since the day I kicked Jackson and Tiffany out of my house. 2.5 years that changed my life forever. The Ellie Fund has grown. It's not just me anymore. We now have 3 volunteer lawyers, a psychologist, and we have helped 42 women. 42 women who were where I was. Trapped, manipulated, lost in houses that stopped being homes. And each of them found her way back to herself. Last week, one of them visited me. Her name is Patricia. She is 55 years old. Her story was similar to mine. An adult son who lived with her. A daughter-in-law who treated her like a servant. Years of emotional abuse. She came to my door crying a year ago, not knowing what to do. And last week she came in smiling. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said to me, "I got my house back. I got my life back. And it's all thanks to you." "It wasn't thanks to me," I told her. "It was thanks to you. You had the courage to say enough. But you showed me the way. You showed me that I wasn't crazy, that I had a right to my own dignity." Those words filled me, more than any money, more than any material thing, because that was my legacy. It wasn't the house, it wasn't the savings, it wasn't anything I could touch. It was the hope I gave to other women. My relationship with Jackson has changed. It's not what it was. It will never be what it was. And that's okay. After that rainy afternoon when he showed up at my door, we started talking. Slowly, carefully. First, it was a monthly coffee at a neutral restaurant. I would arrive. He would arrive. We would sit down. We would talk for an hour. At first, it was awkward. There was so much pain, so much history. But little by little, we started to rebuild something. Not the mother-son relationship we had. That had died. But something new, something more honest, something based on mutual respect. Jackson continued in therapy. He's been going for almost 2 years now. He tells me about what he's learning, about how he's changing his patterns. "Mum," he told me 2 months ago, "my therapist made me see something. I always looked for external validation. First from you, then from Tiffany. I always needed someone to tell me I was enough. And because of that, I lost myself. You were right. And now? I asked. Now I'm learning to validate myself, to know that I am enough without needing someone else to tell me. Those words gave me hope. Hope that he was really changing, not for me, not to get back to me, but for himself. He finished his master's degree. He now works as a manager at a medium-sized company. Nothing glamorous, but it's honest work. Work that gives him dignity. He lives in a small but clean apartment. I visited him once. Just once. It was tidy, with few things, but with photos. Photos of when he was a child. Photos of me. Photos of Robert. And a photo of the three of us at the beach. The same photo I saved from the garage. When I saw it, my eyes filled with tears. I have it in my living room, Jackson said softly, to remind myself who I want to be, the child I was, the man my dad would have wanted me to be. We hugged that day, for the first time in years, and I cried. I cried for everything that was lost, and for everything we were rebuilding. But he doesn't live with me, and he never will again. That's my rule, my boundary, and he respects it. I understand, Mum, he told me. This is your house, your sanctuary, and I lost the privilege of being here, and that's okay, because you deserve your peace. Exactly, because I learned something fundamental in these years. Loving someone doesn't mean destroying yourself for them. You can love from a distance. You can love with boundaries. You can love and still protect yourself. Jackson comes to visit me every 2 weeks. We sit on this patio. We drink coffee. We talk. Sometimes we talk about the past. Sometimes about the present. Sometimes just about the weather. And that's okay, because we don't need to fill every silence with words. Sometimes silence is enough. And Tiffany, I haven't seen her since the hospital, but I hear about her. Megan tells me every now and then. Tiffany is still in therapy. She's been going for 1.5 years now. She works at that coffee shop. She still lives with her mum. But now she pays rent. She contributes. It's a small change, but it is a change. Megan told me something 3 months ago that surprised me. Tiffany talks about you sometimes, in therapy. She says you were the first person to set a real boundary for her, that you showed her that actions have consequences. Interesting. It wasn't my intention to teach her anything. I was just protecting myself. But by protecting myself, I also gave her a lesson. A lesson no one else had given her. The lesson that you can't take what isn't yours. That you can't manipulate without consequences. That life always collects its debts. I don't know if Tiffany really changed. It's not my responsibility to know. But I hope so. Not for me, for her. Because living full of emptiness, like I saw her in that hospital, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Brenda is still my best friend. We see each other every week, sometimes more. Last month we went to Miami together, a girls' weekend, just the two of us. We sat at a spa. We got massages. We ate well. We laughed. You know what I admire most about you? Brenda said to me while we were drinking herbal tea in the hotel garden. What? That you found yourself. Many women our age get lost. They stay in the pain. They stay victims all their lives. But you, she smiled, you got up. And not only that, you helped others get up too. Her words moved me. I don't always feel strong, I admitted. Sometimes it still hurts. Sometimes I still cry for what I lost. And that's okay. The pain doesn't disappear. We just learn to live with it, to carry it differently. She was right. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled me. My sister Bethany came to visit me last month. She stayed for a whole week. One night, after dinner, we were sitting here on the patio, under the stars, with the sound of the crickets. "Eleanor," she said, "do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Kicking Jackson out. Being so radical." I thought about it. I had thought about it many times. "Sometimes I wonder if I could have done things differently," I admitted. "If I could have been softer, more understanding. But then I remember." "What?" "I remember the woman I was before. The one who cleaned and kept silent. The one who erased herself. The one who lived to serve others. And I wonder, if I hadn't done what I did, would that woman be alive today?" Bethany looked at me. And I think not. I think if I had continued like that, I would have completely lost myself. I would have died inside, maybe even physically. "Then you don't regret it?" "No," I said firmly. "I don't regret it. I did what I had to do, what I needed to do, to survive, to live." And it was true. I didn't regret it. Not for a single day. Last week, Mr. Peterson, my boss, called me into his office. "Eleanor, I want to propose something to you." "What is it?" "I'm retiring next year, and I've been thinking about who should take my place as head accountant." He looked me straight in the eyes. "I want it to be you." I was speechless. "Mr. Peterson, you are the most honest, hard-working, and capable person I know. And besides," he smiled, "you've shown a strength that few people have. If you could rebuild your life after everything you went through, you can do anything." I accepted. Not because I needed the money, not because I needed the title, but because I deserved the recognition. I deserved for my work to be valued. I deserved to shine. Last night, before going to sleep, I was reviewing the letters I have received from the Ellie Fund. One of them made me cry. It was from a woman of 70. Her name is Louise. "Mrs. Eleanor, I am 70 years old. All my life I was told that family comes first, that a good mother puts up with everything, that sacrifice is love. And I believed it. I put up with an alcoholic husband for 40 years. I put up with children who robbed me, with grandchildren who disrespected me. And I thought that was how it was supposed to be. Until I heard your story. A friend told me about it. She said, 'Louise, listen to this. This woman did what you should have done years ago.' And when I heard your story, I cried. I cried because I saw myself in you. I cried because I understood that I too deserved dignity, that I too deserved peace. And 2 months ago, with the help of your fund, I was able to kick my grandchildren out of my house. I was able to set boundaries. I was able to say, enough. And now, for the first time in 70 years, I live for myself. Thank you, Mrs. Eleanor. Thank you for showing me that it is never too late, that even at 70, I can choose myself. With all my love, Louise." I read that letter 3 times, and I understood something. My story was not just mine. It was the story of all the women who had ever felt invisible, who had ever believed that loving meant disappearing, who had ever thought that it was too late to change. And if my pain, my story, my decision could help even one woman, then everything had been worth it. This morning, on my birthday, I woke up early. I made my French roast coffee. I sat on this patio and thought about the whole journey. I thought about the Eleanor of 3 years ago, the one who cleaned, the one who kept silent, the one who made herself small so others could be great. That Eleanor no longer exists, And I don't miss her, because in her place a new Eleanor was born, one who knows her worth, one who knows how to set boundaries, one who understands that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival. Jackson arrived an hour ago with a small cake with a candle shaped like the number 60. "Happy birthday, Mum," he said with a smile. I invited him in, but only to the patio, not the house. Some boundaries remain. We cut the cake, we talked, we laughed. And at one point he looked at me and said, "Mum, I know I'll never be able to completely fix what I did. I know that. But I want you to know that you saved me." Me? Yes. When you kicked me out, when you showed me that my actions had consequences, you saved me from myself. Because if you had continued to allow it, I never would have changed. I would have become a horrible man. And you had the courage to stop me. His words reached my soul. I didn't do it to save you, Jackson. I did it to save myself. I know that. But by saving yourself, you also saved me. We hugged, and in that embrace I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the unconditional love from before, it was something more solid, more real. It was mutual respect. Now, as the sun sets over my patio, as I watch the bougainvillea sway in the wind, as I hold this cup of coffee that has gone cold, I think of you. Yes, you, the person who is listening to this story. Maybe you're in a similar situation. Maybe you have a son who disrespects you, a daughter-in-law who manipulates you, a relative who robs you, a life that is no longer yours. And maybe, like me, you have told yourself 1,000 times, "But it's my family, but I can't abandon them." But what will people say? And I want to tell you something that took me 60 years to learn. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who respects your soul. You can love someone from a distance. You can wish them the best without destroying yourself in the process. You can choose yourself, and that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise, because wisdom is not in enduring. Wisdom is in knowing when to let go. And if after listening to my story, there is one thing I want you to remember, it is this. It is never too late to choose yourself. It doesn't matter if you are 50, 60, 70, 80. As long as you have life, you have the option to change, to set boundaries, to say enough, to live with dignity. And yes, it will hurt. There will be tears. There will be lonely nights. There will be people who judge you. But on the other side, there is peace. There is freedom. There is life. A life that is yours, completely yours. And when you reach the end of your days, you won't regret having been strong. You will regret not having been strong sooner. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If a single person decides to choose herself after listening to me, all the pain will have made sense. Because that is my legacy. It is not a house. It is not money. It is not material things. It is the hope I leave in other women. The hope that yes, you can. That yes, there is life after pain. That dignity is always worth it. The sun has set. The stars are beginning to come out. Jackson left an hour ago. He hugged me before he left. "I love you, Mum." "I love you too, son." And it was true. I loved him. But I also loved myself. And that was the most important thing. I get up from my chair. I pick up my empty cup. I walk toward my house, my sanctuary, my peace. I go in and lock the door. I turn on the lights, and I smile. Because tomorrow is a new day, a day full of possibilities, a day in which I will continue to be who I chose to be. Eleanor Miller, woman, mother, survivor, and above all, owner of my own life. Thank you for listening to the end.